Everybody. My name is Gabriella Becker. I'm a community engagement coordinator with Austin ISD. We're so happy to be able to offer this space to build community across the LBJ and Northeast vertical teams. We have anticipated some of the topics that y'all would like to hear about tonight, and we will be doing this with some questions in a panel style discussion and a handful of opportunities for Q&A throughout. If you have a question that comes up during the panel portions, you can feel free to type those questions into the chat, or you can feel free to hold on to the question until we get to the Q&A and unmute yourself and ask any of the members of the leadership team your question. So as we're getting started, if everybody could please share their name and their school affiliation in the chat. And as a reminder, this session is intended for staff, for AISD team members in these vertical teams. If you are a parent or a community member, there will be a session specifically for family and community members that starts in an hour immediately after this one is over. We will be sharing the link to that in the chat. And you're welcome to wait for that session to start or to sit and participate in this one. And this meeting is being recorded. It will be uploaded and shared at a later date in case you want to revisit it or anybody you know missed the meeting and would like to participate. So I'm going to go ahead and let our leadership team introduce themselves, starting with our superintendent, Dr. Stephanie Elizalde.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Stephanie Elizalde, and certainly without hesitation, I am the proud superintendent of Austin ISD. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Elizabeth Casas, Chief Academic Officer. Welcome. It's good to see everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Anthony Mays, Chief of Schools. Happy to be here and a part of the conversation.
Good evening, Stephanie Hawley, Equity Officer. Glad to be here with you all today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sean Brinkman, Chief Technology Officer. Thanks for being with us this afternoon.
Do we have Chief Gonzalez with us? No, let's move on to Ms. Leslie Stevens.
Okay, Leslie Stevens, Chief Human Capital Officer. Happy you're all here this evening.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Reach. I'm the Chief Officer of Intergovernmental Relations and Board Services, and excited to be here with our Northeast and LBJ vertical teams.
Hi, everybody. Michelle Wallace, the Executive Director of the Office of Innovation and Development, and thanks for making time. It's good to see you or see your names.
Hello, everyone. Happy afternoon. My name is Matthias Segura. I am the Acting Chief of Operations and looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for your time. So we're going to go ahead and get started with a question that I'm sure is at the top of everybody's mind with the end of the school year approaching. Dr. Mays, do you mind telling us a little bit about what the end of the school year is going to look like in terms of graduation and prom?
Sure, I'll be happy to do so. And so it is an exciting time of the year. We get to celebrate our seniors, and though we have COVID-19 in our midst, we will be hosting a graduation. It may not look the same, and so we'll be hosting those on May 28th through June 3rd at our athletic centers, our stadiums, and so we'll have outdoor graduation ceremonies. We'll be actively using all of our safety measures, checking temperatures, social distancing, and trying to make sure that we limit the capacity of those stadiums. So each graduate will only be able to bring 4 guests, and so we're looking forward to that celebration, as well as our prom. We'll have a combination of indoor, outdoor proms. Food will be packaged, and we'll have the same safety measures at prom that we will have at graduation, which is temperature checks, screeners, again, just to make sure that everybody's celebrating safely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mays. And Dr. Elizalde, as we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the pandemic and potential changes that that might bring, could you share a little bit about what the summer sessions and next school year might look like?
Absolutely. Our summer sessions, and Dr. Mays may add a few other specifics, it's going to be a balance of ensuring that we're prioritizing some of our students that absolutely have limited amount of time to ensure that they stay on track. So many of our high school students, and I see our high school principals joining us as well, so thank you. I see Principal Magruder, appreciate you, and in a minute I'll see our LBJ principal, I'm sure, momentarily. The other, I think, is we want to balance that out. This has been an extreme, I mean, to say it's a challenging school year is an understatement, right? And so to think that summer is going to be conducted in the way in which it's always conducted really doesn't take into account the need for many of our team members to have some time to truly do some self-care. And so it's going to be very important that we balance out not continuing to overwhelm our staff, and to also recognize that we do have some students, particularly, like I said, either at the high school level or some of the transitions. So whether you're going from what I like to call the handoffs, from 5th to 6th grade, those handoffs are going to be really important. And from 8th to 9th grade, those are going to be really important. And we've heard from some previous community conversations. They've reminded us not to forget about those students who entered a grade level at a school that for some of them, they've never been on that campus. So for instance, some of our 9th grade students currently that will be 10th graders have never been on campus in some instances, right? And so we need to think of them as a transition grade level as well. So I know Dr. Mays is working with the principals, their executive directors, associate superintendents to make sure we prioritize. The other issue with regard to next year, we are excited that we will be providing a more traditional, and I use that word lightly, face-to-face engagement with our students in class. We know that all our adults will have had the opportunity to be vaccinated. In fact, we're one of the districts, because our staff is so energized, that we have the largest percentage of staff members that have sought vaccination already at this time. You all may recall Austin ISD was the first school district in Central Texas to begin vaccinations back in January. And that was due to our partnerships. So next year we'll absolutely have a more engaged face-to-face opportunity. And we are exploring and are committing to offering some sort of a virtual option. We need to be careful with what that option looks like. We don't know yet what TEA is actually going to fund, but we know that there may be a need for some limited virtual options. That being said, we also know, I've gotten a question, will we require masks next year? We will require masks as long as the CDC says that that is what the science requires. We are going to move forward, continuing with our safety protocols. We will allow the science to continue to inform our decision-making and our planning. And so we will have more information out, but it's really important that our staff at our campus level, working with the school's office, really be able to lead what that virtual option may look like. I also want to mention that when we have that option available, parents will have to select one of the options or will have to select the virtual if that's what they want for a minimum of 1 semester. What we are committed to at Austin ISD is we will no longer have concurrent or simultaneous teaching. It is just more than a heavy lift to ask teachers to teach both virtual students as well as students that are in person. So that is why our parents will need to commit to at least 1 semester, because our principals need to work to identify which teachers are best suited for a virtual instructional delivery model, and as well as how many students are going to need that model. And so with that, I know there's some answers, and I know there's a lot of questions still left, and I'm not sure at this time we have all the answers, but we're here to continue to learn.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elizalde. And speaking of questions, are there any questions at this time about the end of this school year or next school year? I think some of our teachers in some of the other sessions were wondering about how campuses will decide which teachers are going to be virtual next year. I'd love if we could discuss that question a little bit.
That is definitely something we're still working to design. We know that it will need to be there needs to be some flexibility on the campuses. Some campuses may only have a handful of students. In fact, maybe several campuses will have a handful of students wanting that option. So it may not be that it's offered at every single campus. It may be clustered at a particular campus serving several different students within a particular feeder pattern or vertical team. We do want teachers who would want to deliver this instruction and those that have had the greatest success during the amount of time that they've had to just be thrown into this and do the best they can with the support that they've been provided. And so I just think with that, it's still evolving. I don't know if Dr. Mays has anything specific to add to that with regard to which teachers and virtual.
No, just that, like you said, it's still evolving. We are still having conversations, and we anticipate, again, teachers going through an interview process, similar to what they would do, any other teaching position. Same thing for all of the other positions that will be staffed on those virtual, with those virtual opportunities.
Thanks, Drs. Mays and Elizalde. I'm seeing a couple of related questions in the chat here from Victoria O'Neill. Will each campus need to be prepared to have virtual teachers? And from Anna Foster, what will the implications for that be on attendance? Will students who elect to be virtual be considered part of the campus population, and will that affect teaching positions?
Those are the intricacies of working with the Texas Education Agency with regard to how do you code students for PEIMS purposes. I want to reiterate that we will continue to work to be as flexible as possible. Some of these are such thoughtful type of probing questions that we need to be thinking about, even if we don't have the responses to it this time. So I also want to assure our community that we are keeping track of those questions that have been asked that we know we need to continue to look into and come back with some of those responses. Right now, it's hard to tell because it is going to be one of those, and I know it's our favorite answer, like, it depends. Now I feel like I'm in the teacher classroom mode again, right? And a student asks, it depends, but it's going to be one of those, it depends. It depends on how many, it depends on grade levels. It's going to depend on if it's content related. On the other hand, we also know we can use this opportunity though to expand our course offerings, particularly in high schools, where maybe there's some courses that we have a handful of students here, a handful of students there. Well, we could have a teacher be dedicated just for a certain period of the day to be virtual so that they don't do simultaneous during that class period, but that they could have a collection. Maybe it's students from John Bailey's LBJ and Sterling Magruder's Northeast. Maybe it's a combination class virtual. And this should allow us to actually meet more of our students' choices so that we really are truly continuing on the legacy that Austin ISD has, that we are a student-centered organization, that we have our campuses, our central offices are built around meeting the needs of our students.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elizalde. And just a very quick point of clarification before we move on to the next topic. Will there be any changes to the school calendar for this year?
And we will be switching interpreters to interpreter 1.
And by the way, let's also thank our interpreters of our ASL and our Spanish, our bilingual, making this possible. Thank you to all the hard work. I sometimes also forget that I tend to talk at a very fast rate, and it makes the job much more difficult. So I'm going to work on slowing down, which those folks that work with me know that's like nearly impossible because I only have 2 speeds, fast and faster. But that doesn't mean it's good, by the way. I want to make a note of that. That is not a good virtue. So with that, At this point, we're not anticipating any changes to the calendar that we've already created at this point. I do want to emphasize the fact that Austin ISD made changes, though, unlike other districts, in that we did not extend the school year way into the summer. Many other districts that started after the original start date actually added those days to the end of the school year. We did not do that in Austin. And so that puts us in a better situation. I'm really thankful. You know, it's one of those things you look back on and you go, that was a good decision, because that really gives more of our staff an opportunity to take some time for themselves and their families. So at this point, I don't see any additional changes to our school calendar, Dr. Mays, unless I'm missing something at the campus level.
No, ma'am. We don't anticipate any changes either.
Great, thank you so much, Drs. Elizalde and Mays. So moving on, our next topic, everybody's favorite topic maybe, is budget. So I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Leslie Stevens. Of course, we know we might be facing some budgetary challenges going into the next school year. Can you please talk a little bit about whether or not that will affect staffing plans and campus funding, and how?
Yes, thank you for that. Currently, for this school year, we had a student projection of 80,000 students. During this school year, we have 75,000 students currently enrolled. And so while we staffed for 80, we currently have 75,000 students. For next year, our student projection is 77,351. So while we're anticipating more students than we currently have, it is still less than the 80,000 students that we are currently staffed at. So what we looked at is we looked at the staffing guidelines that had been previously used in the district at spring budget for the following school year. And when we ran that model, if we'd have left everything just as it was, the 29-to-1 at the high school level, the former way we calculated our elementaries, we would have had a reduction of about 622 campus positions. So instead of just using the same staffing guidelines, we looked at the staffing guidelines in alignment with the current focus on all the equity work in the district, and asked ourselves, you know, is there a way that we can be more equitable with our greatest resources in the district? And when I say that, if you look at our district budget, about 85% of our district budget is in personnel, with the bulk of that being our classroom teachers. So they are our greatest resource. And we know that equitable distribution of teachers to where we have the greatest needs is one of our responsibilities. So we did look at our staffing guidelines and we did make adjustments. So we did things like at secondary schools, instead of 29-to-1, it is 28-to-1. But we also added in a factor of economically disadvantaged. So we looked at how many students on a campus were economically disadvantaged, and we weighted that number. So we actually staffed over what the student projection was because of that weighting. We also weighted for special education in 2 positions, the counselor position and the assistant principal position. We did that because we know that there are time requirements associated with special education program needs, such as the holding of the annual review and dismissal meetings, the ARD meetings. So we waited for those pieces. At the elementary level, we staffed based on program numbers, which they've never done before. So we looked at, you know, how many ESL teachers we needed and how many bilingual teachers we needed from the get-go. We also then factored in, you know, how do we account for our pre-K4? So we added in pre-K4 TAs. So in revising our staffing guidelines so that we were more consistent across the district, so that we had an equity focus within our staffing guidelines, we at this point have between 200 and 250 allocations that will not be on the campus. So that what happens in those cases is if we have people sitting in those positions, they come into a priority pool. So we have 200, 250 in the priority pool. Every year we hire in Austin ISD, we hire between 600 and 700 teachers. So everybody who is in a priority pool will have a position in Austin ISD next year. No one is going to lose their position or their employment with Austin ISD over this staffing guideline adjustment. And we are working diligently with schools and with the school leadership department and the executive directors in terms of looking at each campus individually, and the staffing guidelines do give us a little more clarity and almost like a reset on our campus level.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stevens. Are there any questions at this time about budgeting, whether that's about staffing or any other aspect of budgeting on the campus level? Dr. Mays, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about how instruction drives the budget at the campus level.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And so those are conversations that principals, as well as PTAs and community member stakeholders that are at the campus level get to drive. As they look and they desegregate data and think about the campus needs, they're able to try to make decisions around priorities for those campuses. It's a pretty involved process. Again, it's a back and forth just to try to determine what will be best for the campus. And principals are leading those conversations, but those conversations take place at the campus to determine where are we going to allocate our resources, where are we going to, pick and choose and use our manpower. And so we're happy to have that process take place at the campus as well as at the district level.
Thank you so much. If there are no more questions at this time, and you can feel free to unmute yourselves and ask if you'd like, we can move on, I think, to our next topic. So I know that it sounds like we've been making a considerable amount of changes to put support where it's the most needed for our students. Dr. Elizalde, I'd like to ask you to tell us a little bit about how you worked with the staff since before you started, as well as through your first few months with the district, to identify those and address those areas of need.
Certainly. During my entry plan, the first 90 days, which included September, October, November, it seems like so long ago, but I haven't quite hit my 8th month. That will be, let me see, April the 12th. April the 12th will be that I've been here 8 months. I'm sure if it feels like a long time for me, I'm sure it feels like I think COVID years or COVID months should be like, dog years or something, because it sure seems like this is like the school year that never ends. And I'm not in a classroom and I'm not on a campus, and I teach 0 students every single day. And so I can only imagine the hard work that is ongoing on our campuses. But one of the themes that came up over and over again as I visited with our central office staff, many of those leaders I see their names, if not their faces, in this Zoom gathering, along with city and county officials, whether it was the mayor, the county judge, some city council individuals. I met with some community organization groups. There were lots of themes, but the most common was the one of equity and the one of transparency. And so knowing that those are 2 areas that no matter what community I was engaging, that was part of the common theme. And of course, in Austin ISD, equity is seen so importantly that the Office of Equity was in fact created and is under the leadership of Dr. Stephanie Hawley. But I too want to remind everybody, she's been here a whole 18 months. So let's keep in mind, you know, that the work has really, in terms of our district moving forward, we're in a great place. We're very fortunate to have Dr. Hawley with us, and knowing that it was action that our community was really wanting us to embark on, yet we have to be strategic in that action, because sometimes we may feel like we're doing equity, but if we don't actually engage in the equity process, which our Office of Equity has helped us clearly articulate and continue to really kind of have it become a part of who we are and a part of our DNA, it is continuing to help us as we work towards beginning to tackle some of these larger issues that our community is asking us to really dive into. So sometimes incrementalism is necessary so that we can ensure that we're communicating and that we're being transparent. And then there's some things that incrementalism might hinder the advancement, because if it's going to take us 10 years to get to an equitable system, then I think those, particularly those that have the least amount of power in the system, are the ones that are affected in the most negative ways. And so it's a balance that we're continuing to work towards. But those were certainly some of the themes that I heard that we are working and why we've moved those up to the forefront of our decision-making processes.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Elizalde. I'd love to turn it over to Dr. Hawley to briefly talk about some of the opportunities that the Equity Office offers to get involved with their work.
Thank you, Gabriella, and thank you, Dr. Elizalde, for that opening to talk about some of the exciting work that we have going on in the district. And just want to welcome you to this conversation tonight, because we have some opportunities for everybody to get involved with our new Equity Advisory Committee. And this is a concept that Dr. Elizalde has really embraced, the idea that our community and our district leaders, staff, teachers, students all come together to start to solve some of our problems so we can move toward action, and not just the language of equity, as we sometimes say, but the labor of equity together. The other idea behind this committee is that it's also an opportunity for healing with our community so we can get to know one another. But we do have work to do, so we believe we can do both and. We can do some healing and we can get some work done. And so as we look at our new committee, one of the key strategies we have, if you look at the top of this diagram, is the community building and education. So we don't want this to be just your normal advisory committee that comes together for technical issues and recommendations to the superintendent, but this is an opportunity for the committee itself to become a community and also to learn the history of the district. And so that's why we need you all at the table, our staff and our administrators and our teachers at the table, so that our community can learn about us and build those relationships. And Dr. Elizalde, if you would like to jump in here and talk about the importance of these other subcommittees and how they really align with the board's priorities in our focus on equity.
Thank you so much. I call this the Equity Office's flower petal blooming, because I really think this is, as you can see, it has the foundational pieces. Each of these petals is really about how they come together. You know, if you think about it individually, this diagram, we could take these apart and they're just circles. But yet when we put them together and we overlay them in such a way, it becomes a flower petal blooming. And I think that's so important, because that is the work we're wanting to do. Equity work is, as Dr. Hawley has taught us, it's not linear. It's not step 1, step 2, step 3. It's not a linear process. It's very complex. And on the other hand, this is the courageous group of folks, you are the courageous group of individuals who are going to help us through this process, because it takes courage for us to change some things that we've always done. And that starts with me. It does not fall on deaf ears when I think about processes that we don't sometimes even recognize that have created some inequities, because none of us are waking up in the morning saying we want to do something to be inequitable. But the 4 areas in particular, the student well-being and achievement, the teacher-employee well-being, a culture of respect and customer service, and financial stewardship and prioritization, these all overlap with our strategic framework of mission, vision, values, and our priority focus areas. So what we have now is we actually have an alignment rather than silos working on different types of action plans. This is a coming together and of staying aligned with the ultimate mission of ensuring that we do meet our student well-being and academic achievement, that we are focused on teacher and employee well-being, that we do work to continue a culture of respect and customer service, and do all of that with financial stewardship and utilizing of prioritization. But ultimately, and this equity assessment is a component Dr. Hawley's working on with the advisory committee to look at what are the things we need in a request for proposal so we can bring in the right partners to ensure that we meet these needs. But ultimately, as she started, the community building and education, it's at that top because we want all of what we do to be something we do with community, with you, not to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Elizalde. And I think that's an excellent transition into talking a little bit about our strategic plan. So the board had just adopted our strategic plan shortly before this change in leadership this past summer. Ms. Wallace, I would love if you could talk a little bit about this graphic and some of the priorities that inform our strategic plan.
We'll be switching to ASL interpreter number 2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Wallace, yes. So the board did approve the strategic plan framework. The elements of that framework are our mission, vision, values, and priority focus areas. And you heard those areas, student well-being and achievement being the primary one, teacher employee well-being, culture of respect, customer service, and fiscal stewardship and prioritization. All of those have been discussed with equity as the foundation. Instead of kind of putting that equity as an additional focus area, the board really felt it important that equity come through each area. Right now, Dr. Elizalde and her leadership team were working on developing the strategies and action steps that will make progress in each of those areas with an equity lens over the next few years, with action steps focused on the next year. Those are being developed utilizing feedback. We had a focus group session last year. You may remember we're utilizing that feedback and all of the really great community engagement and listening work that the Equity Office and Dr. Hawley's team has undergone over the last year.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Wallace. I'd like to take this opportunity to take a couple of the questions that I've seen in the chat. The first one that I noticed was a question about enrollment. Do we know if in general the students we lost this year went to other schools or if they are unenrolled?
So we see a combination of both, but the largest percentage, approximately 27 to 2,800 of them, were in the pre-K3, pre-K4, and kindergarten areas. And so most of those individuals, as you all may remember, in the state of Texas, compulsory grade attendance does not begin until first grade. So while many of our families think about kinder as the first time to enroll students, it's still not even required by the state until first grade. And so what we found was that the pre-K3s, 4s, and our kindergartners were the group of students that stayed home because we didn't see them enroll in other locations. And in fact, the surrounding districts showed, including some of the charters, showed the same pattern, that our youngest students are, the majority of those are the ones whose parents said, you know, I think they're going to keep them home for a variety of different reasons. And then there are a combination of some of those that did choose to go to, we didn't see a lot going to neighboring districts. We still continue to see more going to charter schools. So the remainder of the nearly 5,000 from the 27 to 2,800, we did see some of those enroll in neighboring charters. And at this point, our data are showing that we have about 16,000 students that reside in Austin Independent School District that are attending charter schools in our area.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Elizalde. And while we're on the topic of enrollment, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Jacob Reach to talk a little bit about what are some of our priorities around enrollment and how we are looking at addressing them.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so we have set enrollment for next year as one of the district's priorities. We do know that based off of previous years, we have seen decreases in enrollment. During the 1920 year, we actually saw a slight increase. And we know that that is really due to the hard work of all of our schools reaching out to families to share with them the great things happening in public education. So we really want to double down on some of that great work. And for these future years, start doing increased enrollment, enrollment strategies out to some of our families. So I think the big news coming up is on April 10th, we're going to start our Operation Reconnect, where we're going to be going door to door in a lot of different neighborhoods, reaching out to families and sharing the great things happening in each one of your schools. So we're excited for that. There is still volunteer opportunities, so check your email for that. We're also excited to be starting an enrollment office who will be responsible for ensuring that all these families have one place to go to do their enrollment, their registration, and that this office will also be able to help with our outreach and our marketing of the great things at our campuses.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reach. The next question is from Lisa Richardson. Is there a way in which district technology resources and trainings are being tracked to make sure that the different vertical teams are getting equitable support from the district? And I think this is an excellent question for our Chief Technology Officer, Mr. Brinkman.
Thank you for the question. The short answer is yes, we track both of those. We can track distribution of technology resources per campus and professional development offerings, who's attended those professional developments, what we've offered and who's attended by vertical campus as well. So I've noted that, and I'll make sure we work with school leadership to get those reports out there.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm seeing a question from Mary Hyder here. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And it looks like Ms. Stevens answered part of it, but I'm seeing one portion here in particular that I think would be great for you to address, Ms. Stevens, about how different student characteristics were prioritized in the change to the staffing formula, like economic disadvantage, special education, dual language, and so on.
Yes, I can address that, so thank you. So what we looked at some of our most marginalized populations, and we all know that right now we're working with the issue of special education evaluations and all of that, which we looked at those positions on campus whose time is needed for that administrative work. So it could be like you've got ARD meetings, you've got IEP information to get out, even just, classroom visits and those kind of things to those special education classrooms. So in doing that, we weighted those two positions at a 1.5 weighting for special education. So if you were projected to have 1,000 students and 50 of those were special education, we took those out and then we multiplied the 50 times 1.5 and added them back in to get your number to divide by to determine the number of assistant principals and counselors on your campus. So that's at that level, because special education, just as an aside, special education has a different formula and different staffing than we use for the other positions on campuses. For economically disadvantaged, Austin ISD is probably way ahead of the game in terms of most school districts, in that they have always, I don't know the history, so I'm not going to say always, but they have waited for non-staffing dollars. So when a campus gets their monetary budget, They have previously weighted a 1.2 for the economically disadvantaged students on the campus. So when they calculate that, they take the number of economically disadvantaged students on the campus, multiply by 1.2, and then that's the number of non-staffing dollars that go to the campus. We took that same weight and applied it to the staffing formula. So now on a campus, we're weighting the resources of teacher allocations and non-staffing dollars the same, so that schools can make decisions regarding how to best meet the needs of the students who have the most needs. And so at a secondary campus, they might say, we would like to really reduce the number of students to teacher ratio in our English classes. And so they might use an additional FTE there. Or they might say, you know what, we really want to offer a program like AVID on our campus. And so they might use an FTE for that purpose. So they just have to look at like the student population, the student choices, and make those determinations to determine where they want lower class sizes or what additional offering they might want. At the elementary level in the past, the student projections were broken down by grade level. So they would tell a campus, you have 60 fourth graders, and they divide by 22, and that's how many teachers you had. So campuses had to then figure out how they were going to staff for the dual language, and then on the other side of the house, figure out how they were going to have to staff for the ESL or the general education classrooms with that number of teachers. This year, we reversed that process. We started with the 60 given at a grade level. We worked with the multilingual department, and they broke down how many were Gen Ed ESL and then how many were in dual language. We took that number and then divided so that they had appropriate staffing based on program and student needs. So that was just a different way to make sure that our staffing on our campuses was matching what the student needs were on the campuses.
Great, thank you. And a clarifying question, how does the staffing formula determine hiring of diagnostic certified and specialists in school, licensed specialists in school psychology for each campus? Is it based on the number of special education students?
So I'm going to turn that one over to Ms. Casas in special education or in academics.
So currently we have multiple vacancies for the LSSPs and the educational diagnosticians. So what we are working on is recruiting efforts, making sure that the salaries are competitive across the other districts so that we can make sure that we get all of our position filled. And definitely we want to be staffed to be able to make sure that we're able to process evaluations in a timely manner.
Great, thank you so much, Ms. Casas. And I'd like to take an opportunity here so we can hear from some of our other district leaders who haven't had a chance to talk about their priorities or the work that's already underway to address them. And I think actually we can start with you again, Ms. Casas, to talk a little bit about academics.
Sure. Well, we have several priorities. One is making sure that our dual language campuses have the staff, the resources, and the tools that they need to be able to implement the programs correctly. As you know, we're currently working to staff our leadership in the special education department. So we hope to have a lot of new information coming out to campuses to give the campuses everything that they need so that we're making sure we're meeting the needs of our students who receive special education services. On the academic side, we're looking at our curriculum, making sure that it's rigorous and robust and that we're really engaging in authentic learning, moving away from a lot of the old practices of worksheets, but really getting students engaged and excited about learning. So lots of great things happening and more information will be forthcoming.
Great, thank you so much, Ms. Casas. Next, I would like to turn it over to Police Chief Gonzalez to let us know what Austin ISD Police is working on.
Absolutely, thank you. So the district has identified student well-being and a culture of respect as a priority. Those priorities also apply to the police department. In order to be a school-based law enforcement officer, officers are required to take a certain amount of classes in de-escalation, the interacting with adolescents. The Austin ISD Police Department now requires every officer to be certified as a mental health officer. And that means it's additional training and ongoing training for the officers. And we recognize that, you know, we play a small part in the district when it comes to assisting our students, and we have wonderful counselors. But by the nature of our job, sometimes we are the first ones to arrive on scene when a student might be in crisis. And so our job at that time is to de-escalate the situation, stabilize the situation, and so we can turn it over into counselors or administrations. We continue our training and our focus and of treating everyone with respect and dignity. Recently, the Austin ISD Police Department hosted a racial training and racial intelligence training and engagement class, which it was mandatory for all the officers as well as the dispatchers. During that class, we explore emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and then in the workplace as well as with our community, with our students.
Thank you so much, Chief. And before we turn it over to everybody for general questions, I would like to give Mr. Matias Segura the opportunity to highlight some of our work around COVID readiness and facility improvements.
We're going to go ahead and switch interpreters really quick.
Thank you.
We're going to have interpreter number 1.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Certainly keeping our students and staff safe is going to continue to be our priority through this pandemic. Our goal is to align with all of our campuses, working with Dr. May's leadership to ensure that we're providing high customer service and just making sure that we provide an experience and a safe environment for all of our students. This is going to require a lot of ongoing work, continuing to improve our facilities, certainly delivering on the commitment from the 2017 bond program, but also look at different opportunities to improve the welcoming feel of our campuses. One of the things that I certainly recognize our leadership team and certainly Dr. Elizalde is that we want our families to choose our schools, and we want our schools to be as welcoming as possible. So we are starting an initiative where we're going to be looking at these campuses and identifying those softer touches that we can implement. So looking forward to that work and all the work that we have to continue to make sure that AISD is a wonderful place to be. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Segura. And with the last few minutes of our hour, I'd love to open up the floor to any general questions that anybody may have. You can feel free to send those in the chat, to raise your hand, or to just unmute yourself and ask away. We'd love to hear your voices. We'd love to hear from you. Certainly not all at once. All right, we have a question from Catherine Wallach. What is the plan to meet some of the most basic needs from students? This is the question of the hour, certainly. Dr. Elizalde, would you like to speak to that?
I guess we're all, like you say, we're playing double dutch. I think we have a couple of pieces that we can speak to, and Ms. Costas can definitely jump in. I think starting this summer, we are definitely trying to focus on the social and emotional needs of our students. We want to be able to pull them back onto the campus and help them get back acclimated to, you know, connecting with teachers, connecting with peers. And so we're working with our academics team to set some of that up. At the same time, we recognize that, you know, students have instructional needs that they have also. So starting this summer, we have, you know, just a whole assortment of pieces that we hope will engage our communities in a face-to-face environment, but we'll also have some of those virtual opportunities available. But we are heavily focused on meeting the social and emotional needs of our students. Ms. Matias, I'm pretty sure we'll still be offering opportunities for food and everything else throughout the summer, so students will have access to meals. But again, we want to make sure that we meet those needs starting even this summer. Ms. Costas, did you have something to add to that too?
Well, other than that, we're also looking at the curriculum to make sure that we're accelerating learning in the curriculum that we're building and not focus on remediation because students don't have time to go back. So we need to build a rigorous curriculum and help teachers with the scaffolding so that they can meet the needs of students. And then in our SEL world, you know, we have our MTSS, SEL, and mental health providers that we want to provide some clear continuum of services so that you know who to access for what services. So make sure that we have wraparound services available to you as the adults that support the children, but also for our children.
That's great. Thank you so much. Are there any additional questions at this time?
I had one question. This is Kristen Tiller from Northeast. I couldn't type fast enough and I didn't want the meeting to end. When we're talking about SEL support for our students, thinking about what next year will look like and that transition for students and teachers and back to school, is there discussions being had about pushing out specific SEL curriculum so that we can help our students and teachers successfully start next school year?
Yes, that's a great question. So we are working, especially with our secondary campuses, to build in an advisory period within the master schedule. And then we're working on the curriculum so that teachers can have some engaging conversations with students, because it is going to be important to, you know, develop relationships from the get-go so that we have adults that are connected with our kids, but that we give the teachers the tools that they need to be able to facilitate those conversations. So that is a great question. So yes, we're working on the curriculum that will be available to everybody.
Great, thank you so much, Ms. Casas. I think something that we've heard from a number of people throughout these sessions that all of our teachers would like to know about is other ways that they can get involved, including some engagement opportunities specifically for teachers that have been started over the past several months. Dr. Elizalde, could you maybe speak a little bit about the teacher focus groups?
Sure. I was working on reflecting from my past meetings that I thought I was playing Jeopardy. I was the first one who was unmuting, and I was wanting to make sure I let our team respond. And our team is laughing because we were talking about who was going to unmute first. So thank you, Gabriela, which, by the way, I also want to thank Gabriela and all the community engagement team for you know, leading this and helping us organize it. We really appreciate your talent. Knowing that one of the other things was community involvement when I was doing my listening and learning tour, albeit it was very different than I would have imagined because of COVID. We've created certainly opportunities for teachers to be involved, and I'm working on even expanding them. But currently, I do have a teacher roundtable group that covers pretty much every area of our district. There are 40 teachers, and I think I saw Gilbert Hicks, our associate superintendent, and I'm trying to see who else I saw on here, but I know Mr. Hicks had helped in identifying so that we would have a representation of middle, high school, elementary, that we had some band teachers, that we had some literacy teachers, that we had just a variety of fine arts, that we would just have a variety of teachers, special education teachers, coaches, athletic coaches. So we have a variety of teachers who meet with me and provide me some feedback on how things are going from the campus level. I also have a principal focus group, and we meet also so we can get feedback. There's some things we can monitor and adjust, and we can make some adjustments, because what we think might actually take place at a campus when we make a recommendation and the way it actually gets implemented at a campus may not be the same. I can assure you that I'm humble enough to recognize it does not take long to forget what it's like to be at a campus level. We all think we're not going to. The first thing I did when I became a principal, I will never forget what it was like to be a teacher. And I'm telling you, I work really hard not to forget. And guess what? I know that I forget. And so one of the things I would like to add in coming as we continue to move forward, and certainly in planning for next year, is you know, even an opportunity to maybe even co-teach with some of our teachers so they can give me feedback. And so I can remember what it's like to be connected at the campus level. So we're going to continue to expand some of those opportunities for our teachers. And I think Ms. Casas and the academic department are going to be reaching out as well to have opportunities for teachers to participate in some of the curricular decisions that are being made. I don't know, Ms. Casas, if I just committed you to doing something that wasn't on the plan or if it actually exists.
It's on the list. Yes, ma'am.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Elizalde. And I want to make sure that we get to Catherine Wallach's clarifying question here. With the rent moratorium ending during summer and the potential impact that that will have for our family, is there anything that Austin ISD is going to be doing to support families and community members' basic needs to keep those families in Austin ISD?
So I know I have at least one area in which we're working, and the rest of the team may have additional ones, but I know that our parent support specialists have been working with, I don't know if I'm using the right acronym, but I think it's HACA, the Housing Authority, and they have been working with us so that we can identify the areas that are going to be of greatest need to that area. There are things that those families need to complete, right? It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of bureaucracy. And so we want to partner to provide the assistance. Some of our parents may not even have access to computers to complete some of this information. So we're partnering with those families and with HACA so that we can get access. There are actually dollars out there still to help particularly when the moratorium ends. But our parents are only going to be able to get access to that if we help them complete that bureaucratic kind of processes. So we do have staff members that are working with those. But if any of our staff, you here right now, know of some specific families that need some support in that area, I would please encourage you to make sure you communicate with your principal so we can get that information up the chain so we can provide some support in any way possible. Connecting our folks to a variety of social services may not be what people typically think of as a school district, but certainly in Austin ISD, it is a cornerstone of the work that we do, which continues to make, maybe other people may call us weird, I call us unique. So that would be absolutely something that we'll continue to work on. And thank you so much. It's really inspiring how many of your questions are focused on our students. It really does, it touches my heart.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Elizalde. Oh, sorry, Ms. Wallace, go ahead.
Well, I can add to that a little bit. In addition, and I know this is a specific focus of your vertical teams as well. In addition to the services that exist, before pre-COVID, like the FRCs, for example, the meal program that has been provided. Many of you may know this, but we were able to raise funds from private philanthropic contributions and then also from the city of Austin for the crisis support fund. And that has allowed the meal distribution to also be open to caregivers. And so just wanted to reiterate that, that our curbside meal sites are providing meals to caregivers as well. And we hope that will continue through the summer. We're still kind of finalizing the details of what that would look like. And then we've also, in the last few weeks, allocated another round of financial assistance in the form of gift cards to every campus in the district. Over $400,000 worth of gift cards has been distributed. And so that usually happens, it's different by campus. It usually happens sometimes through the PSS or the counselor. Certainly your principals would know. If you do have families in need and you have gift cards that are available, we also allocated financial assistance in the form of gift cards to our refugee services program. So she has access to some support as well for families. Great. So, and that's, due to the caregiver meals with the city, but we've raised over $10 million, 8 of it from the city, and then over 2 from our community with philanthropic donations to help really step up and provide that support. And I know a lot of you have given, so thank you for that too, but it's just really phenomenal. I know it doesn't meet all the need by any means.
Definitely.
but it's definitely more than what's happened in years past.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Wallace. And thank you to all of our leadership team and all of our participants who are on with us. We will be switching over to the family and community session. If you joined us late and you'd like to participate in that, you're welcome to. The link was just shared in the chat. And any questions you had that didn't get answered, you can feel free to contact me directly. My email is in the chat. You can submit them through Let's Talk, and we will be taking this chat and any questions that were shared with it and making sure that answers get to the people who asked them. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. We were very, very happy to have you, and we hope to be able to chat with you all again soon. Thank you so much.